Hello folks, and this is Time Games Lab, and I'm back with the last tutorial of the checkbox and radio button series. Okay, so I did this one on the first tutorial, I did this one on the second tutorial, and on the third tutorial I want to teach you how to make this one. So I have these little checkboxes that can be on and off, and I have this little radio button that only allow one to be on and off, and has this little cool animation effect going on. Okay, so let's start it out, and let's start by showing you what I have here in this game. So I only have a room. Okay, this is a purple room, 400 by 400, and I added a creation code. It's going to be game set speed to 30, so I'm only doing this to set the game speed to 30 frames per second. If you're doing this on Game Maker 1.4, all you have to do is set up the game speed to 30, the room speed to 30. Okay, and let's start by adding a script. Create a script, and let's add a name to this script. Let's call it script is out. Okay, and let's add some code to this script. So first I'm gonna add the script is out. It's gonna be time and maximum time. That's all it takes in variables. And I got this code from this easing formula from gizmo.com. They're all based on Robert Wiener's formulas of easing. I highly recommend you guys to check it out. So it's gonna work with 4 variables, T, D, C, and B, all local variables. And B is going to be equal to 0, that's our initial value that I want ease in and ease out. C is going to be equal to 1, that's the changing value, so I'm going to want to go from 0 to 1 with this script. T is going to be argument 0, that's our current time, and D is going to be argument 1, that's our maximum time. Okay, so then we just do a little bit of math to get this formula working. I'm not going to explain all the math to you, but it's going to return either this formula, or if this is not true, it's going to return you this little formula here. And that's going to give us a nice circular easing effect. Okay, and now I want to add some sprites, so I'm going to create sprite from image. I'm going to start by doing this slider background here. Okay, so let's switch the name to sprite slide background. Let's switch the origin. I want it to be 32 and 32 also. Okay, let's add, the name has 32 in the name. Okay, there you go. That's why it was not working. So add a new sprite, create sprite from image. Okay, and I'll add this little half ball here. That's how we're going to do the effect. I want to have 2 half balls, one on the left side, one on the right side, and this middle section here, that's going to cover the drag portion. Okay, so for this, I want to switch the name of the sprite. I want it to be called sprite half. I want to have origin 32 and origin 32. Okay, and the last sprite I'm going to create from image is going to be this middle section here. I'm going to give it sprite mid. Origin is going to be 32. It's going to be 0, sorry, and 32. So my origin is going to be here for this. Okay, and let's add an object. Let's get the name of this object. Object fancy checkbox. And let's add a create event to this. Let's add some code to this create event. So first I'm going to set my control to false. So that's what's controlling true or false has been this checkbox or radio button, it's on or off. That's how I know it. I'm going to set my position to 0. That's my initial position for the movement animation. And I'm going to set a second variable, it's called position 2 or parse 2. It's also 0. That's the initial movement for the second half of the ball. Okay. RGB is going to be equal to 55, that's the color, the red, blue, and green code for the color that I'm going to be using. I'm going to set my time to 10, that's the number of steps or frames that I want to have when running the animation, the total time of the animation, and counter is going to be equal to time. I want to start without animation in the room. Okay. Then on my step event, let's remove this. What I want to do here, I'm first going to check if it's clicked. So has been this button clicked. So I'm going to check for mouse button pressed, the mouse button left, and if it's within the instance position, mouse X, mouse Y, and self. So am I clicking myself? If I am, I'm gonna switch around the control. So if it's true, it's gonna be false. If it's false, it's gonna be true. And I'm gonna set my counter to 0 so I can start my animation. Okay. Then I'm gonna do this if statement to check if the counter is less than time, which means I have to animate it. If it is, I'm gonna check if the animation needs to be played, and if it is less than 0, I'm gonna add 1 to the counter. So I'm gonna start running the animation. Okay, I'm gonna check if the control is true. Okay, so if it is checked, the button is checked. If it is, I want to set my position 64 times script is out, which will take the minimum between the counter and time times 4 divided by 5. So this is actually taking the minimum between the counter that's going to run from 0 to 10 and time times 4 divided by 5, which is going to be 8 frames in this case. So it's going to be minimum between 0 and 8 frames. And it's going to take my maximum duration. It'll be 4/5 of the total time, because I wanted the ball to drag around. So I'm going to have the first half going 4/5 of the time all the way to the right, and the second one is going to take a little bit. We're going to take 1/5 of the time to start going, and that's what simulates this little drag effect that we have. Okay, and this is going to return 0 number from 0 to 1. That's multiplied by 64. It's going to give us an easing of the position from 0 to 64. Okay, for the pause 2, I'm going to do the same thing, 64 times this, but it's going to be the maximum between counter minus times 1/5 of the time. Okay, so I'm delaying 1/5 of the time here, and the minimum and the maximum of 0. Okay, so it's going to the minimum of 0. So it's going to take the maximum between this and 0. I don't want it to be negative, that's why I use the max function, and it's going to run also for the 4/5 of the time. It's going to ease the position from 0 to 64. RGB, I'm going to do 55 plus 200 and just ease out counter and time. Okay, so it's going to be easing from 55 to 255, and I'm going to close it. I'm going to do an else statement, so the control is not checked. So the position is going to be similar formula. I'm going to remove 64. And I'm going to switch these guys around. So I'm going to be the maximum between counter minus time, okay, and 4/5 of the time, because I want the left side to run before the right side when I'm going back. And position 2 is going to be 64 minus 64, okay. And I'm going to do the same opposite of what is up here. And there we go, is position 264. And RGB is going to be equals to 255 minus 200. Okay, I'm going to ease also from counter to time. Okay, and let's close this else statement and this if statement, and we're done with the step event. Let's add the draw event. That's where the magic finishes. And let's start by drawing my background, and it's going to be a little bit darker than the foreground color, the ball color. So I'm going to draw a sprite extension. I'm going to draw my sprite slide. Okay, 0. So in X and Y positions, scale is going to be 1 and 1, rotation 0. The color, I'm going to make color RGB, and I'm going to use RGB variable minus 20 for both RG and B. That's how I make it a little bit darker, and alpha of 1. Okay, and now I have to start drawing the little ball. But remember that it's divided into 3 sprites. So draw sprite part extension. I'm going to start by drawing my middle section. So sprite mid is 0. And my left is going to be 0 on top 0. My width is going to be my absolute position 2 minus position 1. That's how far apart they are together. And my height is going to be my sprite height. Okay, X is going to be X plus position 2, and my Y is going to be Y minus sprite height divided by 2, okay, to get the middle height. Scale is going to be 1, 1. Color is going to be make color RGB, 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 and RGB, and alpha is going to be equals to 1, okay. So that's the harder one. Now let's draw the little half of the balls. So let's start with the first half. 0, X is going to be X plus position, Y Scale is going to be -1 because I want to flip it around on the x-axis. Y is going to be 1, rotation 0, color is going to make color RGB, 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 and RGB, and alpha equals to 1. Let's draw the last one. Sprite half, 0, x plus position 2, y, 1, 1, 0, make color RGB, 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 and 1 in alpha. Okay, so that's it. That works very well. That's our fancy checkbox. And to do our radio button, I'm going to duplicate it. Okay, and I wanted to rename it to Oh Fancy Radio. Okay, and on my step event, what I want to do, I wanted to add a little bit of code here. It's going to be a with statement, so with object index. So all objects of Oh Fancy Radio are going to be run when one of them is clicked. And I want to check if it's the one that has been clicked. So self ID is different from other ID. And I want to check if it's true, the control. So if I find any one of these Oh Fancy Radio buttons that are true or have been checked and are not the ones that have been clicked already this time, I want to run this code. Okay, so I'm going to do first set my counter to 0. So it resets the counter, and I'm going to set my control to false. That's going to reset the animation. Okay, so the first one is going to reset the animation, the second one is going to set the control to false, which is going to be it's unclicked. And I just close this with statement and this if statement, and I'm done. What I did forget to do here is just add sprite, so let's add this sprite slide background for both of them. Okay, so that's how we know it's clicked or not. And let's go to the room, add these objects. So 1, 2, 3 checkboxes. Let's do 1, 2, and 3 radio buttons, and let's try it out. Okay, so you can see that it is working. I have these checkboxes that I can click and then click as I want, and I have these radio buttons that only allow one of them to be clicked at a time. Okay, so if you like this tutorial, please click on that like button. If you want to subscribe to my channel, please click on that subscribe button, and I hope to see you in the next tutorials.